last 3 decades, mastering buying behaviors, personality types, emotional and logical triggers. This is the Sales Genius Podcast. It's only a numbers game if you want educated. It's time to get educated. Let's go. Educated. Wanna learn how to close deals? Wanna learn how to sell more? That's what we're here for at Sales Genius. Let's go.
Hi, welcome to the Sales Genius Podcast. It's me, your host, Joe Ingram. Today, the whole team is excited to have Mischa Z, the Chief Influence Officer to the Influence Army. He's going to join us today. He's got a long history of driving sales success. He's got over 20 years of experience in old school sales technique, which you can say no one needs old school, except that's how all the really good ones got here. Right? It's the fact you take the old school, tweak it with the new school, and a lot of it still works if you know how to do it. So he's bringing that experience into the digital world to help heart-centered entrepreneurs build influence without breaking the bank on costly ads. And let's be real, right now, everybody says you want to be successful, go run ads. And I think Mischa is going to show us that that's not actually what you have to do. So in this episode, Amplify Your Message Without Ads, Building Influence with Mischa, he'll share how you can elevate your message, increase your impact, and grow your income. So let's get ready to learn from one of the best in the business on how to amplify your message and build influence. And I'm going to bring up VIP. Coach Dan Gordon is here. JR is with us. And Mischa, welcome. Welcome,
oh my gosh!
Welcome to the Sales Genius Podcast. I will be moving us all around because I like to be bigger and take center stage and leave everybody small on the side. But we'll go ahead and switch and give you the floor. So, Mischa, you've been old school for 20 years. I like that. I've been in this game for 30. So that means some of the stuff you learned, I actually created.
Amazing. I learned from you and didn't even know it. That's awesome.
You
taught my teachers.
I actually made up meet and greet. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Yeah. So
yeah, wow. Right.
I created the word objection. Yeah. So
rebuttal.
Yes. Perfect. So Mischa, welcome.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. So I want to start with a question because that's just how I roll. It's who I am. Right. And I want to say that, okay, in your information, when I researched you, you've made over 1 million phone calls in your career, right? Helped generate over 1.5 billion in loans funded. Okay. So how can entrepreneurs leverage the old school sales methods, right? Even though this is like a digital first world that we look at. Like every time someone goes, I'm building a website, they're like, is it mobile first? Or, is it? And you're like, oh, yeah, it's okay. I built it to be on a phone or a tablet. But how do we take sales that way? And I'm going to put a banner up on the screen for everybody that's here. Because why? Because you want to go to theguestingguide.com, right? And Mischa will tell you why he's going to be such a great guest because he shows you how to do it. That's on that one. So Mischa, I'm going to shut up. Let's go. And then I'm going to ask JR and Coach Dan Gordon to interrupt you periodically with a question. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Great intro. 1 million phone calls. I started telemarketing in earnest in 1997, I believe it was. I ended up, I had a finance degree. And the only job I could get after being a DJ in the San Francisco Bay Area and doing stuff like that was telemarketing in the retail commodities space.
I look just like Brad Pitt over the phone. So
yes,
I lived for the phone.
So. That's about as boiler room and high risk leverage and boy, oh boy, boiler room sales. What would we compare that to today? Is sort of the NFT, Bitcoin, FX, or what's like the the currency trading, stuff like that. But back in the day, anyway, it's the only job I could get. And someone handed me a script and said, read off the script. And I said, no, I'm going to be unique. And they said, okay, good luck with that. So I tried to be unique, learned really quickly. Scripts in sales are extremely, extremely, extremely powerful. Helps you keep on track, helps you get the customer from point A to point B. I would say about scripting and working off a script, it's so important to start with a script that someone hands us, slowly make it our own. But anyway, so I started hand dialing 200 telephone calls a day. Boy, I was working 10, 12 hours a day, hardly making any sales. Fast forward to after slowly but surely learning how to sell. What would I say? I think the biggest secret about sales is that I would tell anybody watching, listening right now is the person that we're selling to or that we're trying to sell. I think that they think they're pre-qualifying the salesman, but when we get good at our job, we're actually pre-qualifying the buyer, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to figure out as fast as I can, is this person a real viable candidate? And as I'm pre-calling them and taking them down the path, by the end of my pre-qual, it's a natural fit for them to be a customer. Does that resonate with anybody any of you?
Absolutely. Again, none of us want to waste our time, right? I can at least speak for the three of us in the corner here. We're not here to waste our time. So what's the point? If you're not pre-qualified, you are so wasting your time, right? And the customer's going, I don't know if you're the right one. And we're like, we don't know if you're the right one.
You're the right one. Right? Exactly. Yeah.
That's definitely, but again, that is also a posture point that comes with experience, right? Yeah. And that posture point is what makes somebody better at sales.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And yes. And I think mentors can help us with that. One of the big things that I learned, so I'm making all these phone calls, finally start having some success after 3 years telemarketing. My fingers had blisters from making the calls. I was very lucky to have good mentors. I was listening to guys like Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy. What was another thing that I was taught was follow up. And what are the numbers? And I'm fairly confident they still hold true today. It's on average, it's the fifth time that you follow up that somebody takes an average of 5 times of following up till someone might say, oh, okay, yeah, you're my guy. So fast forward to when I finally had started having success in the retail commodities market, I got recruited into tech in the San Francisco Bay Area. Then I started selling door-to-door, business to business. And so I got my licks doing door-to-door stuff, literally walking into businesses saying, hey, is the CIO here, Chief Information Officer? Is the CTO here, Chief Technology Officer, GM, et cetera, et cetera. And I was basically selling data lines like TS3s, I can't even remember the terms these days, but data co-location, all this stuff. Went through the bubble. It exploded. I couldn't get a job anywhere doing anything. And I was literally, at the time, I had a brand new wife, a 9-month-old baby boy. His name's Cooper. He's now 23. I can't believe it. But at the time, I was working for SBC, which was Pacific Bell, AT&T, one of those telecoms, right? And I was trying to get a job anywhere within SBC doing anything. They had 200,000 employees at the time. I was like, I'll climb telephone poles in freaking, Wisconsin. I don't care. I got a baby to feed. Couldn't get a job. What happened was, it was 2001, December, and I'll never forget it. I had my brother-in-law, his name's Darren Riley. He was a mortgage broker / banker, had been in the business, 3rd generation. He had been trying to recruit me for a number of years. You have to get into the home loan business. You're aggressive on the phones. And when I say aggressive, it means I'll pick up the phone and call people, and I'll call you back. If you express interest, that's the worst thing you can do if you get a hold of a guy like me, because I'm going to follow up. But anyway.
Buy or die, isn't that the terminology?
Yeah, buy or die, right? In a loving way.
Right.
So these days, right? These days, back in the day, I was super aggressive. But Darren was like, "Hey, man, you've got a finance degree. You know how to speak numbers." When I was in the retail commodities space, I fell in line with the first round of computerized traders. So these guys were so smart, and I got to sell their computerized trading. And so had a really technical, deep, smart knowledge, could talk to CEOs. I was talking to high level people, right? And so he's like, "You got to get in this business. You would crush it." I was like, anything but mortgages, only job I could get. Moved to San Diego. And that's where my sales really came together.
Well, it's really inexpensive to live in San Diego, right? So you chose, let me go someplace where the cost of living is higher than any place else to just sort of push you in that direction, right?
Yeah. And, oh my gosh, necessity is the mother of invention. I had mouths to feed. I had the new wife. I had no money, less than no money, which was a blessing at the time. But what happened was, everybody on here know what the MLS is, or the multiple listing service. That's where realtors put houses. Back then, it wasn't so prevalent that people knew what the MLS was. The access to real estate information was different than it was today. But I'm a tech guy, love database, love data. Like, you give me a spreadsheet with leads on it, I'm in heaven. And so he goes, "Hey man, here's the password for the MLS. It's every property that's listed for sale in San Diego." I said, "I can access every property that's listed for sale in San Diego?" And he goes, "Yes." And I was like, "Well, everybody that's selling a house needs a new one." And he goes, "That is a true statement." So back in the day, back then, in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the market was just going ballistic, right? And so I'm working for Wells Fargo Home Mortgage at this time. I figured out how to get phone numbers associated with those properties. So I just started cold calling those properties. And I said, "Hey, my name's Mischa. I'm with Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. I'd like to see if I could interest you in our discounted mortgage rates," I think was my front line. And I just relentlessly said that. And if they said no, and I would say, "So are you sure you're not looking to purchase or refinance?" And if they said no, I would hang up. But usually they're going, "Oh yeah, I am selling my house." I'm like, "Oh, great. You're going to need a new loan." Yes. And then what I started doing, this is old school stuff, was pushing for the appointment right out of the gate. "Oh, fantastic. I'm looking at my calendar. How about Tuesday or Thursday at 2? I'll be by your house. We can talk about your new loan." And they'd go, "Okay." And I'd go, "Well, great. Before I do that, can you tell me about your income?" And they'd tell me about their income. I'm like, "Okay, great. Before I come out there, I need to know about your credit history," right? So I'd have them fully pre-qualified. So by the time I got there, I was like, "This is all the documentation I need." And my boss was like, "You are insane." And I was like, "Well, I just, necessity is the mother of invention again." And then I'll try and make this quick, and I appreciate you guys listening. Title guy goes, "Hey, I can get you access to every property in California, whether it's listed for sale or not, and then nationwide." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I just was like, then I started doing flyer campaigns. Wells Fargo Home Mortgage is such a powerful, powerful brand name too. And so what I started doing was going after everybody who was selling their house, and then any big bank loan, anybody who had a big bank loan, so like Chase, Bank of America, whatever other big banks there were out there, I would mail them to try and get them to come over to Wells Fargo, in effect, and just built teams and telemarketing teams and flyer campaigns and all that stuff. And had a great 15-year run and funded $1.5 billion in loans. And a gift that I have is finding the niches as well. So even when the market completely imploded, 2008, I'm sure you all went through that. Yep. Like, I was thriving. I was like, all right, problem here. What's the market that needs served? And Wells Fargo's got such rich data, and I'm a smart guy. I was like, oh my gosh, I can just pivot over here. And so I just really thrived even through those times. And fast forward, like a lot of us, 2012, 2010, divorce, failed relationships. Both my parents die. I've got money in the bank, more failed relationships, massive existential crisis. And it was like God, universe, call it what you will. Like everything that I was good at became painful overnight. And I was like, what's my next step here? And I basically retired to get my boys through school. That was the next indicated step. My two boys, Cooper and Waylon. And I went into my boss at the mortgage business at the time. Can't even remember the name of the company I was with, but I said, hey, boss, I quit. And he goes, we'll match any offer that you're getting. I said, no. Yeah. I said, no, you don't understand. Like, I'm retiring. I quit. I'm going to get my boys through school. And he looked at me with these eyes and he was like, oh my God, I wish I could quit too. He was burned out. But so anyway, I get my boys through school, 5 years. I started teaching yoga. I was doing stuff that really allowed me as a single dad to really support my boys, which was such a powerful thing to do. It was so hard though on my identity because I was so successful, sales guy, closer, all this stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like the stay-at-home dad that I used to talk so much trash about, right? The universe was like, ha ha. Anyway, boys get through school. And I was like, well, time to reemerge. Love sales, love marketing, love entrepreneurship. What am I going to do here? I naively thought I will master online marketing. And fast forward to what I ended up doing was, well, first I joined Russell Brunson's $25,000 a year mastermind. Have you guys heard of Russell Brunson?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I fall into his funnel, overspend right away, naively. I'm like, I'll sort this out. And fast forward, what I end up doing after spending $150,000 is I'm helping businesses get their customer video testimonials. So you guys might serve somebody, they might have success. You'd come to a guy like me. I had what was called my perfect video testimonial system, my 5-step system for getting your customer to gladly do your selling for you. And I had what was called my customer story arc framework. So I'd interview your customer and I'd be like, how crappy was your business before you met Joe, Coach Dan and JR? They'd be like, it was pretty crappy. Well, how'd you bump into these guys? Tell me the story. Great. Well, what's your life like now? What's your business like now? Right? Craft that story, edit it up, ship it off to you. I still have wicked imposter syndrome. I just nature of new business, learning new things, but I am getting literally flown around the world to interview people. I'm getting flown to these parties. My customer, Stacy Oliver, she has a magazine called Mind, Body, Soul magazine. And she's flying me around to these hot off the press parties to interview her covered girls, her magazine contributors, and I got this wicked imposter syndrome. And she sends me an email and I wake up to it and it says, Mischa, I pay all these other people. She was all pissed off this day. I pay all these other people. I'm wasting my money. You're the one who moves the needle in my business. You're the one who drives the revenue. I had this light bulb moment of like, oh my God, I'm adding value, because I would interview her cover girls and they would want to resubscribe to her thing, basically a pay to play magazine. And then also all the advertisers would see what I was doing. I'd interview her advertisers and they're like cutting checks because they were having fun. I was creating content for them, stuff like that, interviewing them. At the same time, Ryan Lipsey, he has this massive realtor audience. He had been telling me, Mischa, you got to speak on my show. It's called the Small Business Spotlight. You got to speak on my show. You got to teach my realtors how to get their customer stories, how to repurpose that into content. Because as everybody knows right now, realtors are horrible at getting and creating content, right? Yep. So I finally capitulate. It was like literally I was scheduled to speak on his show the day after I got that email from Stacy. I speak on Ryan's show. I crush it. I mean, it was incredible. And I had created this crappy little Google form opt-in, like schedule a call here, right? It was like the worst opt-in page you could imagine. People were opting in and all this stuff, and I just had
Mischa,
this.
what do you? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
go.
What do you think worked about that opt-in page?
You know what? I'll tell you, that's such a great question, Dan, and I have not been asked that question before. I'll tell you what it was. It had value at the top. It was like, I can help you do this. Apply now, or whatever it said. It was like, book your call now. There was no ambiguity to it. It had the value at the top, and here's the next thing you need to do. There was not like this crazy long story. You know what I mean? Does
Right.
that make
Yeah.
sense?
And so how did you get that opt-in page in front of people?
I gave them a simple, concise call to action. We've got guesting guide going across the bottom. That's rule number one. Podcast guest speaking, have one place to guide people. What happens is people go, they get it all in their head, all these, where should I guide them? And they have 14 different places to send them. At the time, I had one, right, opt-in page. So now you go, hey, where can my people find you? Hey, go to guestingguide.com, download my free guide on how to execute a profitable and successful podcast tour. Bam, super easy, clean, concise, it's catchy. Guestingguide.com. I can't remember what my URL was for the other thing, but anyway. Yeah, go on.
And so are you promoting this just on podcast, or are you promoting it in other ways?
Yeah, me basically, I generally speaking, I'm just promoting this on podcasts, but here's what happens. It all starts with the podcast. So I like to do what's called an influence tour, which all starts by guest speaking on podcasts. Okay. So I'm going to guest speak on this podcast at the end. I'm going to say, hey guys, make sure to give me a recording of this thing, right? To give me the video recording. And if you guys say okay and blow me off, I will find it online when it finally goes live.
Yeah, we can download anything off YouTube.
Absolutely. So it's like, if you don't give it to me, I'll find it. I'll download it. I'll repurpose this into all sorts of little clips. Some will be good, some will be crappy. I've refined the process. Doesn't really matter. But if you go to any of my social sites, you'll see I've constantly got clips going of me being.
See, that's interesting what you just said. Like, some of them will be good, some of them will be crappy. It doesn't matter. Why is that true?
Yeah, because beauty's in the eye of the beholder. My brain doesn't really know. I think I know what's good or bad, but I really don't. Right. And really what I'm looking for is the social proof aspect of it. Most people I find, how about this? It's great when we have engagement and I've got lots of likes, comments, looks, followers. My ego is satisfied. But really what I want is when somebody looks me up, there's social proof of what I'm talking about. Someone just finds me on LinkedIn, Facebook, they're going to see clips of me and they're going to be like, oh yeah, this guy's doing what he's saying. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
like,
So, I mean,
I'm going to shuffle us around just for the talk.
Yeah.
There we go. So is it more quantity over the quality in that respect? Or is everything you put up technically quality for that person who actually liked it?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to say quantity is amazing. Again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You answered the question. If you asked me it again, I would say
I'm really
yes.
wonderful that way.
So here's the thing. I'll give you an example. When I launched my Influence Army a year and a half ago, I hadn't been on Facebook for I don't know how long. I had 1,600 followers or friends. 1,500 of them were Indian speaking people who were trying to pitch me something. So let's be real. How many of my followers were really friends? My email list was 250 people. Anybody listening, watching right now, like, you want to be growing your email list. I will tell you that, because.
But what about the email list? Should we be growing it?
What's that?
Should we be growing the email list? I'm trying to read between the lines of what you're
Yeah,
I don't
right.
think so,
I know.
based on
Yeah.
what Mischa says.
Sometimes I wonder. Yes, you should be growing your
Okay.
email list.
We'll take it that way then.
Preferably, you're engaging with your email list. But point is, I hadn't I had an email list at the time of 260 people who I hadn't emailed in, I don't know, 6 or 9 months or something like that. I hadn't been engaged on the social media. And I was like, all right, I'm going to launch my influence army. I'm ready to go. I have nothing on the social media that shows that I'm to create excitement or interest, right? So literally what I did 2 weeks before I was going to launch is I started posting memories. Facebook's great like that, right? It's like, hey, do you want to post the memories? I was like, I guess I'm going to start there. I started posting memories and just was posting any random crap just to, I say that with love too, or, I was just posting stuff just to create some awareness. And then I launched and I created awareness. I'm answering your question in a very long way. It's like, just
I
put
agree
stuff
with you.
out there. Yes, thank you. I'm trying to just say, so I launched, 27 people joined my thing. All of a sudden, I've got a monthly reoccurring revenue for my influence army because I created a little bit of awareness with whatever I had available. And now they saw me and they joined my thing. So now, like Gary V is like post 5 times a day. Gary V is like beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Like I try to have him in the background, like let go of what I think is good content or bad content because it just slows me down. And really what I want and is what has served me, and there's different things serve different people, but I just want social proof out there that when people look me up, they see something that's active. Rest of the story is I have optimized as best I can my Facebook page and my LinkedIn page so that people opt in through there. I think that was the beginning of this question that you asked. You're like, the email list is very important. I'm repurposing this content. The bulk of my business comes from guest speaking on podcasts. But as I repurpose that content, people opt in through my social media channels. Does that make sense? That's how I was trying to answer the question.
Okay.
My God,
And
so
so,
long.
yes, terribly long. And so when someone gets the guesting guide, right? That's, I'm
Yes.
guessing, the top end of your funnel.
Yes.
What,
Yes.
like, just take us through this. What happens next? Where does it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Where does it? So take us from there to the money. Like, I'm really
Yeah,
curious
great,
about that.
amazing. Yeah, someone opts into my guesting guide, and then I have what's called a soap opera sequence. I learned this from Russell Brunson. Like, Russell's amazing. These guys are the best in the world at this kind of stuff. So I had contempt towards him, spent enough money with him to finally learn, like, he does know what he's talking about. So the soap opera sequence. So you opt into my guesting guide. It says, hey, great, here's your guesting guide. The guesting guide is a great piece of content. You could follow it and guest on shows and have what you need.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Email sequence starts. Email number 1. Here's part 1 of my story. Open loop at the end of that email. 3, 4, 5. At the end of email 5, I basically told you an amazing part of my story, some of which you heard when I was going on and on at the beginning of this call. And then so now there's know, like, and trust. So those 5 emails, that soap opera sequence, are building know, like, and trust. At the end of the soap opera sequence, it says, hey, you should join my influence army, or hey, you should join my wait list, or hey, take this next action, buy my thing, take the next step. Does that make sense?
So what do you find? So again, there's 3 alternatives, right? So it's join the wait list, join the group, or buy something,
Yeah.
right? Did you come up with the fact that those 3 things give them a choice to do something where you could win?
I just give them one
Right.
choice, but it's one thing where they
Okay.
could win. I love that. Great way. So it changes on any given day. And sometimes, yes, I try
Because
to
my thing would
now.
be, a confused mind never buys, right?
Confused mind never buys.
And
Yeah.
I always tell everybody, when it comes to internet, a confused mind will never click submit, right?
Yes.
And for
Yes.
whatever you're offering. So that's why I was saying, is that, do I get to the end of the 5th email and all of a sudden there's choice of 3 things I
No.
can go? Okay.
No,
All right.
no.
I'm glad I
No.
clarified that.
Yes, absolutely. I was just saying that for a while I had it going to my wait list, and then I'm like, oh, you can test and try things. I think it's what's
Yeah.
so important in the space that we're in is to test and try and see what works and be willing to do different things. That's been a hang up with me. I'm kind of an old dog, 50 whatever years old. I know Andrea, if that's your name, it's hard for me to see. You might be surprised, but yeah.
Yeah. That's where the girl's supposed to go. No, you don't look 50.
Yeah, 60.
Right.
No, no, you look young. Come on,
There you go.
guys.
Thank you.
There you
Right. Thank you. And
you
honestly, it's the filters. Thank you, Zoom and StreamYard filters,
StreamYard,
because it
yeah.
takes out my crow's feet. Right. It gives me a
Right.
nice.
Adjust my appearance and then just slide it all the way over, and I become
Yes.
25 again. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. But it took me a while and spending a lot of money to get to the point of just test and try, like test and try. And that's really what a lot of these internet marketers are teaching us. I believe that it's taken me a while to learn. It's like build first iteration and then start tweaking, because the first iteration is probably not going to work. So you start
So-
getting iterations out.
Will
there.
if I may.
Do you do A/B testing then? Do you have two funnels at the same time?
Great question. I'm just at the point where I can start doing that. So yes, that is the goal. And the people that I know that are like ultra successful where I'm trying to get to, they are A/B testing.
Right. Hermosi says AB and then AB the ABs. And
Yes.
then AB the ABs until you get a funnel that just kills it for you, right? And
That's
goes
right.
through. And that to me is great. So we're already at the 30-minute mark. So Mischa, I got a question for you. So based on this journey with all of the sales techniques you've amassed, right? Now we're in the digital world and we're playing with all the stuff that's there. Give me two things that a salesperson, right? So an actual salesperson. So most salespeople have what, like an Instagram or a TikTok or something that they're trying to build influence for that social proof,
Yep.
right? What are two things that they could do to amplify their message, right? Without, like I always tell people, don't boost anything, right? Because boost is like radio.
Yeah.
They have to be tuned in and ready for your message when it comes across. Otherwise, it's just a waste.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't have a catchy, actual little jingle, no one cares. Right. And so what are two things that they can do to amplify their message and get themselves out there?
Yeah, I am obsessed with podcasting. Listen, most of the people that I know in the internet space right now that are trying to build their businesses are starting at the wrong spot, and they're spending money on ads, trying to optimize their message and learn their audience. And unless you've got insanely deep pockets, it's an exercise in futility. And I've seen so many people fail, leave, abandon their online marketing journey, their entrepreneurial journey. There's a tweak in the algorithm. I've seen we all have seen multi-million-dollar businesses evaporate overnight, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
man, get out there and guest speak on podcasts. And I'll like, you guys have email lists. Yes, who has an email list on this? Awesome. I'm praying to God that I resonated to some sort with you guys on some level. So when we're done, I'm like, hey, I'm doing my podcast guest speaking masterclass. Would you share it with your email list if you think it will serve them? Does that make sense? So that's what anybody listening, like, what are the two ways to grow your influence? Start guest speaking on podcasts and then leverage that stinking relationship, right? And you can do it by asking as a salesperson, I got to sell you on sharing your list with me or doing a promo swap or something like that. Does that make sense? And then also, and then it's like, okay, guys, hopefully Coach Dan in the background's going, yes, I want Mischa on my show. He talks a long time, but let's get him on the show anyway.
I can put the
his
kibosh
show's
on
only
that.
4 minutes, so it couldn't happen.
Right. So, Mischa, bottom line that I want to get on podcast. Someone wants to get on podcast. Fastest way to get on good because there's a lot of crappy ones out there, right?
Yeah.
I should know. I've been on a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Fastest way to get
Thanks,
on
Dan.
decent podcasts. Like not the top of the chart, but just a decent
Yeah.
podcast. Fastest way.
Yeah, great. So you can start with the Google search, obviously. So if you're Andrea, what do you do?
Trying to find the unmute button.
Yeah.
I'm actually a storytelling speaker monetization coach.
Amazing storytelling speaker, monetization coach.
Yeah,
So
we gotta
Your
make
title's
money.
harder than your last name.
Yeah.
absolutely. So my guess is you would probably love to speak on coaching podcasts because coaches are speaking to your audience, a good portion of them, right? So you could be like a business, you could do a simple Google search, business coaching, or insert any kind of coaching you want, right? And you're going to find the Google is going to be like, here's a bazillion for you, right? On Spotify, you could put coaching under the podcast search and it will give you 40, and you just keep scrolling down and it'll give you more and more and more and more and more. Here's what I do to find the good podcast to answer your question. I'm looking at how many likes and reviews do they have, because most of the true good download information's behind a wall, so we can't see it. So I want to know how many I want to know how many reviews do you have on Apple Podcasts, and are they relatively new? That's like my number one thing. Do you have reviews? How many, and are they new? And if you've got 20 to 40 reviews of some sort and they're relatively new, that's a pretty juicy podcast, I would say, right? That's going to have some sort of an audience. Did I answer your question? I had another thought, but
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's just.
But
it's
then it would just
the-
be reach out to them, right?
yeah, then it's
Just-
reach out to them. Absolutely. Here, let me tell you something too. I learned this from Ron Story Jr. Ron Story is incredible. He basically told me two things that I learned from Ron Story. Number one was because when I started guest speaking on podcasts, of course, I wanted to speak on Joe Rogan and Amy Porterfield and Tim Ferriss. And he's like, Mischa, if you could speak to a live audience, that a captive audience of 10 people that were interested in what you had to say, would you? I was like, of course I would. And he goes, well, think about podcasts that way, and that'll open up a world of podcasts for you. So that was number one. Number two was like, you're making your pitches way too complex. He goes, try this and see if it works. And it is as simple as this. Hey, Mischa, I found your Table Rush talk show. That's the name of my podcast. Hey, Mischa, I found your Table Rush talk show. It's a great podcast. Are you looking for interesting guests? If so, what are the next steps? You see how simple that is? I was like, all right, I'll try it. So I started sending that out. 1 out of 10 people reply back. Yes, I am interested. Is it you? Who is it? What do you want to talk about? Here's the next steps, or whatever. Start that conversation, right? So it can be as simple as that. If you Google like how to guest speak on podcasts, you'll find some famous person like JLD, Johnny Lee Dumas. Love him, right?
Yeah.
But Johnny Lee Dumas is like, here's the pitch. Hey, I found your show. I've 5-star reviewed it. I've engaged with your content. I'll share you with my audience of 3 million people. I don't have an audience of 3 million people. That pitch doesn't serve me one iota. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Anyway, I'll
Well,
shut up.
13
Do
people.
you use things like Podmatch, like those that help you get on actual podcasts?
It's a great question. I love Alex Sanfilippo, I think his name is, and he's got a great service. Most of the people that join my influence army are not happy with the service, in that they're like, yeah, people never follow up. I'm not happy with the quality of the podcasts. So I don't use it. I think it's a great tool. I do know people that use it with success. What I do, I have 100 emails going out a month soliciting, pitching podcasts. It's simple. And Joe, I'll tell you this too. I emailed Joe, I think it was back in June, and this goes to the follow-up. I emailed Joe back in June-ish, I think it was. Joe replied back, hey, give me your bio or give me your one sheet. He slipped through the cracks, right? And this week I was like, oh my gosh, I have a file called immediate action. right? And from my old sales days, the follow-up is so ingrained in me that, like, if you fall through the cracks, I don't care if it's 3 years later, I'm going to pull you up, and then I'm going to start soliciting you, right? So I was like, all right, Joe's turn, even though he fell through the cracks. Hey, Joe. I can't remember.
This one fell
have
through the
email.
crack. That's what it said.
This one fell through the cracks. Exactly. Sorry about my delayed response. Here's the question. I answered your question. Bam. That was yesterday. Bam. I'm on today. So I don't mess with, to answer your question, Andrea, I don't mess with Podmatch or anything like that. I'm just sending emails, 100 a month, 100 a month, 100 a month, 100 a month. Can I speak on your show? Are you looking for an interesting guest? I have some more juicier scripts, but if you're like, I don't know what to write, hey, Joe, I found your sales success podcast. It's awesome. Are you looking for interesting guests? If so, what are the next steps?
Yeah, and it works. So, all right, perfect. We're at 2:43. So let's go ahead. I got to wrap it up. Any final questions from anybody on the screen?
Yeah. Hey, Andrea, how's it going?
Good.
Nice.
How are you?
Real good. Thanks. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Mischa, I went through a parallel track. Instead of the wagon, I was on something called Wachovia, which the wagon bought. But it's interesting listening to all of this. It doesn't matter if it's good or it's bad, but the five hits, just be out there hitting, because the important thing is to hit, first of all, whether it's a fastball, slow ball, whatever, throw the dang ball 5 times. And that's, some people don't have the perfect pitch like Joe Ingram, the sales genius. It doesn't matter. If you're pitching, you're winning.
Yeah.
Well, I'm winning, Joe.
And your microphone's much better today, JR. Thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
really does help.
We've had problems, but we're doing okay now.
Yes. Fantastic. So I want to thank you so much, Mischa, for jumping on. My VIPs, thanks for being on the screen. Those that are watching, write down what you just heard, right? It's about taking action. Knowledge isn't power. It's the application of the knowledge you collected. So I'm going to tell you, go out and sell something. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Let's talk about sales, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the challenges that may be. Let's talk about sales. A little bit,